Alright guys, today I'll be reviewing Jackrabbit at Seabreeze. This is the 1920 John A. Miller classic wooden coaster, and this is easily the coaster I've ridden more than any other in my life. This is probably the coaster that's closest to my heart, as it really is the coaster that I've looked at all my life. As someone who goes to Seabreeze a ton every year and who now works at Seabreeze, this is a ride that I just get to ride all the time. And while I don't think it's the best ride in the park anymore, it's still a special ride, and I'll get into that in this review. So to start off, you're going to enter the queue line. It's usually not going to be too bad of a wait. It will have one of the biggest lines in the park, but that being said, the biggest line in the park at Seabreeze isn't very big, because we're not that big of a park. And there's no theming in the queue line, but it's definitely a classic feel. You hear that lift hill going, and it's a classic lift hill sound. It's really nice. And then you're actually going to get in these trains. And let me tell you, these are some good trains. You're going to sit down in them. You're going to pull down your lap bar, which is shared by both people in your row. There's 10 rows and 5 cars. And I would say the best seat on the ride is honestly row 2. And I get most people are probably going to like the front because it is smoother than row 2. But I feel like you get the same power in both row 1 and 2. And I personally like the bit of roughness in row 2. It's butter smooth up in the front, but in the second row, there's a bit of a rattle, which I personally like. And if you go further and further back in the train, the ride's just going to get weaker and weaker. You can go for the back row if you really want, because there is one drop, which I'll point out, which is better in the back, but for the most part, it's a way better ride in the front. These lap bars are really good too. You can pull them down and hold them up pretty easily during the ride. And it's pretty easy to get a decent amount of room. Maybe that's just because some of the ride ops know me here, and they're not going to try to staple me. But, I don't know, from my experience, even when I didn't work here and people really didn't know me too much, I've always been able to get some good room on this ride. So with that being said, you're going to start out of the station, take a right-hand turn, and then head up this lift hill. I'd say it's actually fairly quick for its age, so you're going to get to the top pretty quickly here. So then you're going to head down that first drop. You're not really going to get airtime anywhere in the train, unfortunately, not even in the back. And then you're going to hit your first valley. The valleys on this ride aren't too intense. You're not really going to get blasted with positive G's here. But they are a bit rattly in those wheel seats, which, again, I personally prefer. But I definitely understand if you want to sit up front. But anyways, you're going to hit the first Camelback after that, which gives a little pop of airtime all around, nothing too special. No matter what row you're in, it's a bit stronger up front, but still, it's definitely weak floater. Then you're going to hit the second Camelback, and this is your first dose of good floater. It's definitely not ejector, but up front, you definitely feel it pretty strong. And then in the back, it's weaker floater, but you're still coming out of your seat. And then you're going to hit the best part of the ride, in my opinion, if you're up front, and that is the pop into the first turnaround. You're definitely going to get some weak ejector on this hill. It's nothing too special. It's nothing mind-blowing, but you definitely come out of your seat pretty hard on this, especially if you have some good room. And in the back, it's just some floater on there. But also, the turn itself is very violent. You definitely get some good laterals on this. You'll be getting some good airtime, and then all of a sudden, you'll be thrown to the left. So it's a pretty good moment. After this, you're going to hit a double down. This is going to do nothing no matter where you are, even in the back. And then you hit the best drop on the ride. If you're in the back, you will get some good airtime on this. It's not quite ejector, but you definitely float out of your seat pretty hard. And it's sustained. All the airtime moments on this ride are very sustained, I must add. And in the front, you also get some good floater on this drop. It's definitely not as good as in the back, obviously, but you do come out of your seat. And if you have some room, it's really weird because it feels like you'll almost like jump the seat divider, sort of like how you do on Phoenix. Up next is the best straight Camelback on the ride. This is going to give some weak ejector in the front if it's on a good day, and then in the back it'll give some floater, nothing too special. I will say this ride overall is pretty inconsistent, but this hill especially is kind of inconsistent. There's definitely some days where it's pretty strong ejector and others where it's just kind of okay. Like I said, this is my most ridden coaster, so I've ridden this in every single possible condition, so I'm pretty much averaging all the possible rides you can get on this thing. So then after that, you're going to pop into this turnaround. You'll get some floater here if you're in the front, and then in the back, you're not going to get anything. Then you'll hit this next turnaround, and you actually get some good laterals on this, especially up front. This will pin you to the left again. Definitely not as strong as that first turnaround, but it's still something. And then you hit the tunnel, which leads you into the finale, a drop into a pop into the brakes. The drop doesn't do anything, unfortunately, even in the back, but the pop into the brakes definitely does. For a while, I thought that was the best part of the ride, and it still is to some extent. I don't think it's quite as strong as that pop into the first turnaround, but it's definitely more sustained, so it depends on the day. If this is running strong, then this could be the best moment of the ride, because you will get some weak ejector on this in the front. And in the back, unfortunately, the brakes hit just soon enough where you don't really get too much airtime, but that's okay, because you should be riding up front anyways. And that's your ride on Jackrabbit. Overall, it's a really solid ride. It's definitely not the greatest thing of all time, but, I mean, it's a personal favorite of mine just because I've grown up with it. This is my ride that I know better than pretty much any other. I mean, the only other you could argue for is 2024 Predator or Whirlwind. Like, those are the only other two rides you could argue I know better than this thing. And even then, like, I don't know. I've just known this ride inside and out for my entire life, which is why it does hurt me that I'm only going to give it a 7 out of 10. Given it is a really high 7, I debated giving it an 8 just because I know what this ride can do at its peak, but again, I'm averaging the best rides and the worst rides. So given that I know this ride inside and out, I feel like I have to give it a 7. So let me know what you guys think of Jackrabbit at Seabreeze. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.